Hey everyone, it's been a while since the last update, so I wanted to shed some light on what's been going on with the swap and why it's taken so long to follow up with a new video. I've been getting quite a few messages on Facebook and YouTube regarding the swap and why we stopped. We didn't stop. I was preparing for the swap the whole time. We were doing prep work. There will be a video about that. So I've been doing that and recording it so you guys can see what's been going on. The main reason why we didn't swap yet is because I'm waiting on some parts. We pulled the engine into the shop and we were about to go ahead and change the oil pump gears and crank sprocket, but then my mechanic said, look, since we're tearing everything apart, the engine has 80,000 miles on it. Supercharged has been on it for 60. So he was like, we should probably change all the gaskets, all the stuff that wears out, even the chains and the timing components. So I was like, yeah, you're kind of right. Now that it's out, now's the time to do it. I was eager to get it done, so I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's just change the gears and go on, move on. But he's right. Plus, my mistake, I didn't check the clutch when the car arrived, and turns out that it's busted. It's totally worn out. So I had to buy a new clutch and flywheel. So we're basically waiting on all those parts to arrive, and now with the coronavirus, the whole thing's been delayed even more. So unfortunately, I'm still waiting on the parts, but whilst I'm waiting, I thought I'll follow up with a video and address some questions that I've get asked, mainly being what all is needed for the swap. So in this video today, I'll do a rundown of, actually I'll split it up in two parts. First part will be what is mandatory for the swap, and the second part will be what might be a good idea to get whilst you're doing it, whilst you're doing the swap, and I'll run you through what I got for my swap. Some things will be specific for me because I had some things missing, some things broken, but the rest will be just general stuff that would be a good idea. So let's start off with what is mandatory to swap a 5.0 into a 3.7. I would like to start this part with saying that your best bet is to buy a donor car, a racked car that has a good drivetrain, preferably low miles, and that way you will have everything you need in one place. You don't have to piece everything together. You can do it that way, you can piece everything together, but it'll definitely end up costing you more because you'll be buying parts from different people and everybody wants to make money. So best bet is to go online, Facebook groups. There's a ton of Mustang Facebook groups where people sell their cars. You can go on Copart and similar web pages where you can buy racked cars. So just be aware that if you go to a page like Copart, you will need a license to buy the car. There are certain, you can buy certain cars without a license, but the really good stuff, the cheap stuff, you will need I believe they're called brokers. They will bid on the cars for you, and they will take a fee or a percentage, and they will buy it for you because you don't have a license. With that being said, what do you need? First off, obviously, you will need an engine and you will need a transmission. Now, you can use your 3.7 transmission, but the bell housing is different, so you will need to buy a different bell housing to bolt it onto the engine. You will need a wiring harness. The Mustang has three different wiring harnesses: a body harness, a transmission harness and a engine harness. You will need the transmission harness and the engine harness. So engine, transmission, and the harnesses. That's for the drivetrain. Now you will also need the complete 5.0 exhaust, because the 3.7 uses 2.25 inch piping, and the 5.0 uses the 2.5 inch piping. So you will need that, plus obviously your headers won't bolt up. So you will also need the drive shaft from the 5.0, because it's shorter, since the 5.0 engine is bigger, has two more cylinders, engine is larger, so everything's pushed back a little bit, so the drive shaft for the 5.0 is shorter. So you'll need that. If you're getting a donor car, might as well take its rear axle if it's good. Depending on the gears, that's what I did. I have 273s in my 3.7, and the donor car came with 355s. So I'm swapping out the entire rear axle. Not mandatory, but a good idea if it has desirable gears. What next? You will need the PCM, obviously. You want to preferably also get the cluster and the key, the original 5.0 key, and around, so you have your key cylinder, and around the key cylinder will be a round plastic piece. That's called, Ford calls it the transceiver. The transceiver, your key, cluster, and PCM communicate, and that's what your PET system is. So unless you want to get a PET's delete, which you can do, but you have to send your PCM to a shop. They have to physically open it, disable PETs, and then they'll ship it back to you. It'll run around $200 to $300 depending on who's doing it, and then you don't need to worry about having those components, and you can actually use the PCM from another car. It doesn't matter, and the key and everything. So as long as you get a PET's delete, or you can have your keys reprogrammed. So you will need to go to a Ford dealer and have them reprogram your keys, and things will work again. If you want to know more details about the PET system, you can go and check out my other video, my previous video about on the subject of PETs. Other than those components of the PET system, you will also need the ABS module. The ABS module is located on the driver's side behind your airbox. So you'll need that, because otherwise you will have a check engine light, and the only way to get rid of it is to swap that ABS module. I was told by another member of the Mustang Facebook groups that you can actually turn off your ABS, and it'll also turn off your traction control, if I'm not mistaken. And that way you won't have the check engine light, but you also won't have ABS or traction control. Now, if that doesn't concern you, you can run like that, but I do want my traction control and the ABS working, so just have that in mind, and get the ABS module as well from that car. Another thing is you will need a brake booster pin. Now that's a minor thing, but once you pull out your brake booster, it is, so I've been told, it is inevitable that you're gonna break that pin. So just have it in mind. It's a $5 piece, but you will need it to put your brake booster back onto the car. And finally, you will need a tune. So just plan ahead and get your tune a couple days prior to your swap, because your tuner will need a couple of days to prepare the tune and get it back to you. So just have that in mind. And with that said, that's it. That's all you need. Those are the main components that you need for the swap. You do not need to change the body harness of the 3.7. The 11 and 14 cars have the exact same body harness, so you do not need to change anything, except you will need to change one pin. There's one pin difference in the body module between the 5.0 and the 3.7. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to take your body harness connector and take the pin number 41, which is your mass airflow sensor, and move it to position number 2. 3.7 has an empty position number 2, so just take the 41 and put it into 2. That's it. That's all you need to do. And like mentioned, you will need the 5.0 engine and transmission harness. You plug that in, you're good to go. The only issue you can run in is pets, and again, watch the other video where I explain in depth what you need to do to work around it. That's it for part number 1. Let's talk about what would be a good idea to get. I'll show you now what I got for my car, and then I'll quickly run you through a couple more things that I had to get afterwards. So here's the video.
First and foremost, I bought service manuals, DVDs for both cars, for both years. It has all the wiring diagrams and everything that I might need. I will go through this. I will analyze both cars and see what the difference might be in wiring, so I know up front what I have to do. I got new brake pads. I also bought these caliper rebuild kits for all 4 calipers. What else do we have? A new shift boot, since it's going to be a manual. Stainless steel brake lines, billet aluminum crank sprocket and oil pump gears, a little reservoir, fuel pump. I will swap that in. New spark plugs. Now is a good time to do them. All new belts, new filters. I bought some ceramic spray, ceramic coat, primer, the main paint, and a clear transmission oil, a 160-degree thermostat, a MGW shifter, O2 harness extensions, header gaskets, because of course we're gonna do long tubes. So here we have long tube headers, a one-piece aluminum drive shaft, a Mishimoto radiator, and a supercharger, heat exchanger, a really big, thick motherfucker instead of the slim piece that comes originally with it. This one is cooled by those fans, so that's what these are for. This is for a GT500. We're gonna make it work for the GT. Oil pan, because the one in the GT's, it has a dent in it. I don't want to mess with it. I don't know if it's gonna leak or not, so that's new. And some window louvers. I'm not really too sure if I'm gonna put those on or not, but they were cheap, so I bought them obviously used. I'll be also changing out my current lowering springs. They're a bit too low for me, plus I want to see if my ride quality is going to change with these. Also, a good thing to buy, or if you have it already, great. I got these off of eBay. They're, I don't know, $2, $3, $4. Those are different prying tools, plastic prying tools, for, when you're gonna dismantle your dash or whatever plastic pieces, trim pieces inside a car, so you don't fuck up your shit. Also, a couple dollars. These are different pin removal tools. for different pins, different connectors. So I will need those when I'm going to do the wiring for the supercharger on the 3.7, and I will have to change a couple of pins over.
So besides the parts that I've shown you, I also had to get second gear for my transmission because it was stuck in gear when the car arrived. So I brought it to a shop and they told me that second gear was broken. So I got that. I also had to get the transmission mount. As they cut the car in half, they didn't give me the transmission mount. So just have that in mind, that the V6 and V8 transmission mounts are not the same. It doesn't matter if it's automatic manual, that fits. Just make sure that you get a V8 transmission mount. So you will need that. I also got motor mounts. My car has around 120,000 miles on it. The donor car has 80,000 miles on it. The donor car's transmission engine mounts were busted, so I don't think mine is much better. So I just went ahead and bought just the OEM Ford motor mounts. Nothing fancy, because I wanted to keep as much of a factory ride quality as possible. The car's already stiff as fuck, so I didn't want to go any stiffer with aftermarket. I also, as mentioned before, I got the timing components. I went on Rock Auto's webpage. They sell a kit. It's not from Ford, but I confirmed with you guys on Facebook and the groups that the company that sells those kits is a reputable one. They make really good aftermarket stuff. So I was confident buying that. Otherwise, I would just buy OEM Ford. I wouldn't mess with anything else when it comes to those components. So there's a kit that's $200 and something. It has all the chains, the tensioners, gliders, and all the bits and pieces. So I got that. I also got all the gaskets for the timing cover and the water pump, thermostat. Since again, I got new clutch and new flywheel. Since that is off the car, it's a good idea to change the rear main seal. Now it's really accessible, and especially with the engine out. So do that, because as the engines get older, almost all engines start leaking at that main rear seal. So just change that out whilst you have the engine in front of you. Even if you're not changing the clutch, it's only a couple of screws to get the clutch off and change the rear main seal. So that's a good idea. Do that. Other than that, I got a new water pump. The one on the car it's starting to go out, so it's not the best. New belt tensioners, new supercharger oil, and I didn't go ahead and buy new pulleys, because the ones in the car, they're starting to rust and they're making noises. But instead of spending a bit more cash, quite a bit more cash on buying new pulleys, I just went ahead and bought new bearings. Bearings are a couple of dollars, so I bought the exact same bearings, and I will just change them out myself and have new pulleys. So the main logic you want to have behind this is change everything that is easily accessible now whilst you have the engine in front of you or transmission. Most of the parts I got, I didn't have to. I didn't feel like spending the extra money, obviously, but my thought process was, now it's really easy to do. Install the shifter, install the long tubes, install the oil pump gears and crank sprocket, change those seals, timing components. Now it's really easy to do, and you're doing it once, and that's it. Yeah, sure, you have to buy all those parts and it will cost you more money in the beginning, but in the long run, it's better to do it now all at once and, maybe wait a couple of months to save up some money and buy all those parts. And once you have everything, go through your preparation phase and get everything prepped. So at the day of the swap, you have everything laid out, everything's ready. So you don't have to go back a couple of months later when you save up those couple $100 to buy, I don't know, headers or clutch or whatever, and then you have to fuck around, spend an entire afternoon trying to get the long tubes in, or having to drop the transmission to do the clutch, or as a silly thing as the main rear seal, which costs $4 or $5, but replacing that fucker once everything's on the car will cost you a couple of $100 because you have to take the transmission off, the clutch off. It's a big job whilst it's on the car. Whilst it's off, it's not. So just go ahead, find a donor car, buy it. Obviously, don't buy one that has a fucked engine or transmission or something. So just buy a good wrecked car and make a list of what else you need. Like in my case, I needed the heat exchanger, radiator. I needed those things. I didn't know I will need those beforehand. It was just after I got the car, when we dismantled it, that's when we realized that they're fucked. So then I put together a list of everything that I need and everything that I would like to change, and I saved up some money. That's why it's been taking me more than 6 months already to piece everything together. Not because it's complicated, but because it costs money, especially for me. I'm from Croatia, Europe. I have to fly everything in from the United States. It costs a lot of money, and I have to work around shipping. So if you're in the States, it's a lot easier and a lot cheaper. Now, the one thing I would like to do, but I won't be doing now because it's just out of my budget, aftermarket cams. I would really like to put the cams in, and now is the perfect moment, because when you change the oil pump gears and crank sprocket, you have to get everything off the engine, and the cams are right in front of you, and all you have to do is unscrew the cams out, put the new ones in, screw back whatever they're called, the retainers, whatever, that hold the camshafts in place. That's it. It's like, I don't know, half an hour of a job when you're doing the gears. So it's really easy to do. Anybody can do it, and it wouldn't cost anything extra. Just unscrew the bolts, put the new cams in, put the bolts back in. That's it. But later down the road, when I can afford the cams, we'll have to pull the engine out again, take everything off again, change the cams. We'll have to buy new gaskets for the cover, timing cover, and it'll be a huge job. It will cost quite a bit of money, and now it wouldn't be even a thing. So just think ahead and try to do as much as you can right now. So my advice would be save up, buy the parts you need, and go for it. Do a really good prep phase, and you'll be fine. In the next video, I will talk about the prep phase. I'll walk you through how to swap the car, what my mindset is, what my thought process is behind the swap, and I'll walk you through what all we needed to do, how big the prep work was for the swap. I did a lot of things I didn't need to do, but again, I want this to be as good as possible. So next video will be about that. So I'll see you in the next one.